Good evening, everybody. I'm Isabel, tax partner at Bishop Fleming, and I'd like to wish you an enormously warm welcome to this evening's webinar. We're actually doing an introduction to careers in accountancy. So tonight's presentation is largely aimed at those people that are graduates thinking about their next job once you leave university, or people leaving school. But also, just to say, it's not just those. We could also be talking to people that are thinking about a career change. In fact, one of my presenters tonight has enjoyed a career change, saw the light, decided that accountancy was her true vocation, and came over to us. I'm joined this evening by Ria, an audit partner. I'm also joined by Katie, who's a member of our recruitment team, who'll be really useful in answering any questions on the process. And we've got three remarkable, actual, real live apprentices who are going to give you a steer as to what it's really like being an accountant, being a trainee with Bishop Fleming. So we've got Sam, who's an audit graduate trainee. We've got Yelena, who's a launchpadder, who's joined us with her A-levels, not straight from school, actually. She had many adventures in between. And we've got Shelby, who's the person I said who's had a career change. She'll tell you about that. So in terms of what we're going to cover this evening, we're going to start with what is accountancy all about? Actually, what is it? We're going to talk about the different departments in practice. Then we're going to talk through what qualifications and skills you need to become an accountant, and a bit of a spoiler alert, it's not all about maths. Then we're going to talk through the recruitment process, where, as I said, we've got Katie who's going to talk us through how you apply, and then we've got some people that have been through that recruitment process and can tell you a little bit about what it's really like. And then the bit that I think I would have found really interesting if I'd heard this before I started in my career, and we're going to talk about a day in the life of. So our trainees are going to talk to you about what they actually do in their day job, how it works. We're going to talk through experience of managing work and exams, because if you're going to join to be a trainee accountant, you're going to have a stack of exams and there's no escaping that. So it's how we balance that, and they're going to give you their feelings about it. We'll talk through life after a training contract, what happens when you've finished. And then we'll finish off with a rendition of our favourite things. And no, I'm not talking about Sound of Music sing-along. We are actually all going to talk to you about what we really like about Bishop Fleming, to give you a bit of a steer, bit of a flavour. So I'm hoping that sounds like what you signed up for. If you've got questions as you go along, and I think there might already have been a question, you have got the facility to do so. I think you can add your magic questions up at the top there. It would be really helpful if you do add your name, so just in case we don't manage to answer your question at the end of the session, we can come back to you afterwards, but we will try and wrap those all up at the end. Okay, and without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ria, who's going to answer the big question. What is accountancy all about anyway? Ria.
Thank you, Izzy. So that is a big question, and actually accountancy can take two different forms. You can either go into industry, which is a company, to do accountancy and do your qualification there, or you can go into practice, which is usually within an accountancy firm, so one like Bishop Fleming. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about that avenue today, because that's where our apprentices are currently training with us. So in terms of the accountancy firm, you tend to have different departments within that firm, audit being one, corporate business services another, tax and corporate finance. And what we're going to do now is just tell you a little bit about each of those areas. Shall we start with Sam, who can tell you a little bit about audit?
Yeah, so the best way that I like to describe what an auditor is to people is, and definitely the coolest way to describe what an auditor is that you're basically a financial detective. Your goal is to get on site with the client, go through all of their financial data, pick up any anomalies you see along the way, with the ultimate goal being that the accounts they produce at the end and that they give to the public is a true reflection of what their business is. So that investors and banks can invest and lend with more confidence effectively. And then the other side of it is that you're looking at the internal controls and the internal processes of the business. You're looking for weaknesses in that business, and you're trying to find out where fraud could occur, where somebody could be siphoning off money, and then effectively recommending ways in which to patch those holes up. So yeah, that's just a really high level overview of what audit really is.
Thank you, Sam. And then if we go over to Shelby now, she'll be able to tell you a little bit about corporate business services.
Yeah, so corporate business services is where we tend to work with smaller businesses or partnerships or sole traders. And this is where we can support these people within their own businesses in order to help them with their finances, whether it's to be more compliant with completing their year-end accounts or their monthly management accounts. So because these people that we are supporting don't tend to have as much financial background, we're really providing the advice for these people in order for them to focus on their daily business activities. So we tend to get to know our clients really, really well. We're working with them on a monthly basis. We can get very close to them and really understand what we can do in order to add value to their business.
Thank you very much. And then over to Yelena for tax.
Yep, so I did a stint in the tax team, and there's only two things that are really certain in life, and that's death and taxes, unfortunately. So what we tend to do in the tax team is we're trying to help people plan as best they can to make their businesses and their personal lives tax efficient. So whether that's looking forward to whether we should pay them with dividends or whether they should be paid with salary, or perhaps they're deciding whether they want to expand their business overseas and maybe they want to look at the VAT implications of that. We use the technical knowledge and those kind of tax rules that you have to learn to basically advise our clients as best we can so that they've got the peace of mind that their businesses are running as efficiently as possible.
Thank you very much. And then we've got corporate finance. So corporate finance is very much about buying and selling businesses, exit planning. So if owners want to exit their business, we help them in terms of finding the best way to exit and also raising finance. But what you'll see from what we've just all described to you is that actually we have a range of services, and it actually allows you to take businesses from the start of their life right through to the end. And that's actually really exciting because you get to build really deep and meaningful relationships with our clients because of that.
Fabulous. Thanks very much for that, Ria. So that hopefully is giving everybody a bit of a flavour about what accountancy is within a practice, and it does cover an awful lot of areas. Now, if some of that might appeal to you, we're going to go on now to talk about what qualifications and skills we're looking for you to be applying to be a chartered accountant. So if I may ask you, Katie, first, what are you looking for when people are applying to you?
So I'd probably say the biggest question I get asked is, do you need to be good at maths? No, is the straight answer. Another one is, do you need to study a certain subject at school or university? Again, no. Of course, being good with numbers helps, but it's really not essential. So we've got two routes for trainees. One of those is the Launchpad route, and then the other is for graduates. Each of those require different qualifications, and those qualifications are ones that you gain from either school or university. So for that, if you are looking at Launchpad, we look at those qualifications that you gain from school. And that's a BBC at A levels or equivalent. If you are joining us as a graduate, then we look at the grades that you would achieve if you were a Launchpad, so that BBC at A levels or equivalent. And then we also ask that you have achieved a 2-2 or above in your degree. And please note that that can be from any discipline. So you don't need to have studied accountancy and finance or a mathematics degree. We've had people come over who have studied music and a mixture of different things, as you'll probably discover in this webinar tonight as well.
Thanks very much, Katie. Yes, just to say, I did French and German and studied lots of poems and films that I've not used that much since I started accountancy. But I think actually we've got a whole raft of other skills that I think is probably quite important for people to think about. As we've said, maths isn't, you don't have to be a maths whiz, you do have to be reasonably numerate, but maybe we could actually have a chat now about other skills that we're looking for. And Ria, I wonder if I may ask you if you can give us a bit of a steer on that front.
Yeah, for sure. So the technical part is obviously really, really important to the job, but it's not the sole part of that job. We really focus on soft skills as well. There's a lot of soft skills which our team members need to have. The first and foremost being a team player. You are a part of a team in everything we do. So you really need to have that ability to work as a team and show evidence to us as well to get a job in terms of how you've worked in that team sort of environment before. You need to be friendly and approachable, which is internally because you're working within the team, so you need to be a really approachable team member, but also you go out to clients and speak to clients a lot, so again you need to be very friendly and approachable when dealing with clients. Confidence is going to be really key. You need to speak to clients from quite early days in your career. From day one, you might be asked to make contact with a client. So confidence is really key, and resilience as well. Resilience, because actually the accountancy exams are really difficult. You do get the support, and we're a really supportive firm. There's always going to be people around to help you, but you do need to be resilient with the highs and lows of what a career in accountancy can actually bring to you. So I think those are really key in terms of the softer skills. But I also see there's been a question which has come through for Katie, just in regards to the difference between Launchpads and graduates. Would you mind just going into that a little bit of detail as well?
Yeah, of course. So I think I mentioned that there was 2 routes that you can join us as a trainee. So when we talk about a Launchpad candidate or somebody that's in Launchpad, that basically means that they're educated to the high, well, they can be educated further, but if you're looking at university, then that's a different trainee route. But for Launchpad, it's basically for school leavers, so those who are educated with A levels or equivalent. So you're talking A levels, BTEC, and so on from there. The second route is for trainees, so that's for those that have then gone on to university. So you can then join as a graduate, when you've graduated from university. So they're the 2. Launchpad means school leaver, graduate means university graduate.
And what's the difference in the time frames for those two training schemes? Because they're both apprenticeships, aren't they?
Yes, they're both apprenticeships, so they're both level 7 apprenticeships. So that's equivalent to a master's degree. So the difference for that is if you study at university and join us afterwards, that requires typically 3 years of training to be ACA qualified. If you join us as a school leaver, then you would typically become ACA qualified within 5 years. So it's just an additional 2 years to catch up to speed to where you would be if you were to join us as a graduate. So that's the difference mainly between the 2, but both of them you would still study the ACA route. It's just the different duration and length of time to how long it would take you to study it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to ask our team of trainees here actually to give us a bit of a steer about what skills you don't need to be an accountant. Yelena, if I may ask you first.
Yeah, so to be honest, I was quite academic at school and I really did not show any interest in business whatsoever, was not entrepreneurial minded at all. But you really don't need a formal business qualification to come into accountancy, as long as you come with the right attitude and that you're willing to learn and you're willing to put the work in, because it is hard work and sometimes it does take it out of you. Then you're given all the support you need to really make a run at it and to do your best every day. That's all they really want you to do, is to make sure that you're trying your best.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sam, can you give me your opinion?
Absolutely, yeah. So I actually have a business management degree, not a science degree. It's actually a Bachelor of Arts. So I'm not great at maths. I had no accountancy knowledge at all when I came in to join the firm. I didn't even know what a debit and a credit was. So if you're sat there after I've just said that, wondering what they are, don't worry about it, because I didn't know either. But effectively what I'm trying to say is you don't need any sort of accounting technical knowledge when you come in, because you learn all of it either on the job or through the actual apprenticeship and the exams that you do along the way. So yeah, if you're worried about having no accountancy knowledge, absolutely not a problem at all.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Shelby, what's your experience so far?
So as you mentioned earlier, I'm a career changer. So before starting in accountancy, I was a science teacher after studying for a science related degree. So as you can imagine, there was no debits or credits involved with teaching science at secondary school level. So I did not have any technical knowledge when I first started, didn't know anything about accountancy apart from, of course, the basics, which hopefully this webinar will really help you to understand as well. So what I really had, I think, which shown through during the interview, was a commitment to learn. So although I was starting with nothing, I showed that I really do want to learn this and I really do want this career. And if you come with that commitment and that ambition, Bishop Fleming do welcome you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Shelby. Right, so now we've got a bit of an idea about what we're looking for. Now we're going to talk a little bit through the process of actually applying to Bishop Fleming and what stages we have to go through. So Katie, if I can ask you to talk us through it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a nutshell, it's a 4-stage process. It's thorough, fair and challenging, but in a really positive way. So the first step is where you would apply with your CV. So find the position that it is that you're interested in, and then apply, like I say, using your CV. The second stage is online testing. So that consists of numerical reasoning and deductive reasoning. That's all done in the comfort of your own home and is sort of a form of psychometric testing. The third stage is a video interview. That's done online, again in your own time. We'll ask you a series of different questions, and then you'll record yourself answering those back in sort of a platform which is designed for that. And then the fourth and final stage is an assessment day. You've got the luxury of either coming into us face to face for that or doing that virtual, if of course that's a better means for you. And that will consist of a business task, an interview, and then you've got the opportunity as well to have a tour of the office, meet with one of our trainees, grill them with as many questions as you possibly can. They love that. And that then is the final stage, and you'll find out feedback after that. We make sure that we always give everybody feedback, and at any of those stages you can ask for feedback too. Although it seems like there's an awful lot of online stages for that first, second and third stage, we do communicate with you each step of the way, so there's plenty of opportunity to ask for questions if you do have any.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And I think I seem to remember that there is something on our website. If anybody's feeling a little bit twitchy about filling in a CV for the first time, I think we've got some top tips, haven't we, on our website to help people on that front. So that bit should be fine and dandy. Then we've got the sort of testing online, which I think people can find practices for. But the bit that would probably frighten me the most, if I'm putting my hands up about it, is the video interview, not with a real person. Now, Sam, I think you've got a bit of experience about that. Could you talk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, not to be too brief, but it really is effectively the same as a regular interview. I think what you'll find is that it feels slightly more disjointed because you don't have that natural flow of conversation. So if you get worried about that when you're doing it, I was like, oh God, I'm going to sound robotic. It's not going to come across correctly. That's expected, you know, it's not a normal conversation. It's going to be a little bit different. And then on the flip side, it's not as intense because you are at home. You do get that time to pause and think as well. Whereas I find that when I do a real interview, my mouth starts moving before my brain starts working. But when you do when you're doing the video interviews online, you do get that moment to have a think about the question that comes through. And then most importantly, the UI was really easy to use. So there were no issues around the tech side of it. But yeah, overall, pretty normal experience.
Okay, a bit less worried about it. Shelby, could you possibly talk us through the business task? So this is where we're going into a room and presenting with lots of information. Talk us through what you do next.
Yeah, so you're given a business which is in a struggling position, and full well knowing you are coming with no business knowledge, no accountancy knowledge, you then need to essentially just use common sense in order for what you would advise for this client in order to improve their situation. So like I say, there's nothing technical about it. What's really important is how you approach the task. I remember saying to Katie, actually, I was like, that went terribly. I didn't even finish. And the interviewers afterwards, when we had a chat about it, they really did not mind that. They just wanted to know what ideas I would come up with if I had a bit of imagination and, like I say, common sense. So it did feel a bit daunting initially, but after I'd had the conversation during an interview, it felt absolutely fine, and obviously went well in the end.
Friends, well done. Elena, what about the actual interview itself? So after we've had the business case, then you get grilled. Do you get grilled? Is it as bad as that?
Not really. So I think we touched on it earlier. I spent a little bit of time outside of, like, after I finished school, and did a little bit of traveling and did a little bit of working, but I was just working in the hospitality industry, so I wasn't really coming with anything particularly relevant to accounting, and it didn't really matter. They just wanted to know how you could relate the experiences that you had, be that work experience or volunteering or paid work, to the sorts of skills that you thought you might need as an accountant. But the biggest thing about it, really, meeting you in person, is they want to see whether they can work with you. They want to see what you're like, whether you're going to fit in with the team, whether you're going to be a good fit for the firm, and also whether it's a good fit for you. I think a lot of the dialogue around interviews is about, oh, is the company going to like me? What does the company think about me? But actually, it's also your opportunity to ask questions of Bishop Fleming or the company that you're interviewing for. Like, is this the right company for you? Do you share their values? Do you see yourself working here? Because I think ultimately, if you're enjoying what you do, then that's when you're going to flourish, and that's what the interview's for.
Absolutely. Really, really good point there. Actually, it's for you to decide whether the firm's the right firm for you as much as the other way around. Brilliant. So now I'd very much like us to move on to a day in the life of an accountant. So can we start with you, Sam? Can you tell me what a typical day is like for an auditor?
Yeah, absolutely. So auditors go out on site a lot with clients. So an audit will generally last at Bishop Fleming 1 to 3 weeks. And in that time, you were going on site with the client, and you're going on site not on your own, thankfully. There is a hierarchy there on every audit, and that is the associate level, which is what you'll come in at if you are a graduate or a Launchpad. And then above you is always a senior who's always there on site with you, and they can help run the audit with you, and they're there with you every single day. They can field all the complex questions. And then above the senior is the manager, who comes on site maybe twice a week, 2-3 times a week, and they can do sort of the complex tasks that the senior struggles with. And then above the manager is the partner. So there really is like a support network chain. And as I've said, you know, these audits last 1 to 3 weeks. So what that means is you're going on different audits with different teams every single couple of weeks, which means you get to meet everybody in the office. You're not sat in the same sort of table arrangement. You're not just sat next to a couple of people that you've always been sat next to. You know, you get to really chat to everyone and really make connections with everyone around the office. And then also you get to experience loads of different industries. So you get your foot in the door with plenty of industries. Everybody needs an audit. And for example, some of the places that I've done that are really good. I've done manufacturing firms where I've got to see the entire conveyor belt system that was about a mile long. That was really, really interesting. It was basically wood pulp, and then at the end you had this product that I would buy off the shelf in Asda. And then I also did a fine arts company, which is where I actually stayed in Piccadilly Circus in a hotel, which was all expenses by BF. And I got to look at, well, I had to try and value, you know, £1 million worth of artwork, which was effectively not my job because I gave that to the senior. But what I'm trying to say is that you know, you get this wide breadth of industries that you get to work into, and that is what really drew me to audit specifically. So yeah, that's the life of an auditor basically.
Fantastic. That is good, and that is definitely part of audit, is going out and about and actually being there at the client's premises. So if we can go now to Shelby, who's going to cover CBS, and let us know, is it about going out and about? Is it sitting with the same two people that Sam's tried to say is a bad thing day in, day out? Tell us what it's like in CBS.
So CBS is much more office-based. In fact, it's mostly office-based. The clients tend to come to you mostly if you were to have any meetings, if they're not done over Teams or any Zoom and kind of networking. So with CBS, you can, for example, as a trainee in the morning, be spending the time working on a client's accounts that they've sent you information in for, and we can then in the afternoon discuss those with the client. We can discuss the financial performance that they've had throughout the year, and we can discuss what they plan on doing going forward and whether we can add any value to their business going forward. And especially after the last couple of years with COVID, we've had a lot of businesses which have struggled through this. So we're really about seeking opportunities for those clients in order to make sure that they can survive the pandemic effects. So it's quite varied in terms of the clients that we do work with, and that they are tending to be smaller companies, smaller clients, partnerships, as I've previously said, but there's still a lot of variety within that. And an example of what I've been doing today, just to give you a true taste of what it's been like, I've then this afternoon had a meeting with my academy funnel, which is where we discuss how we can improve that area of our business. So we're huge for academies at Bishop Fleming doing their audits. So we've been discussing discussing how can we attract different businesses that are linked to the academy sector in order to continue to grow our business as well. So as a trainee, you are encouraged to get involved with things like that in order to improve your own development as well.
So it's not just the technical side, you're doing some business development for the firm too. It's interesting from an early stage.
Yeah,
Really good.
definitely. And also to mention that at lunchtimes you can tend to go for walks with your colleagues, or you sit in the kitchen. In Exeter, we're getting a brand new office soon, so we do get to sit and socialise as well. So it's not just all sitting at your desk with the same two people every day. There is a lot of variety within it.
That's a little dig at you there, Sam.
Sorry.
I'll take that.
We do try and mix in the office. Yelena, can you talk us through what it's like working in the tax team?
Yeah, I mean, so as part of my Launchpad, you have to do rotations around the different departments. So I spent time in the tax team, split 4 months personal tax, 4 months corporate tax. I think that's the first big distinction. Personal tax is where you tend to deal with individuals. So that might be just someone as a sole trader, or maybe they receive a salary and various other types of income. And you're basically you're preparing tax returns at the beginning. You do inevitably have to do some of the administration and the compliance, but as you get more experienced in the department, you really start to get involved in some of the advisory work, and that, I think, is really where things start to get quite interesting. So you've got quite a lot of rules to learn, and it can be quite technical. It is rules based, but it's not necessarily just about that. It's about how you use that knowledge that you have to actually help those individuals. So perhaps they've started a business in the UK, but they want to go and retire in Spain. What are the implications of that? How can we support them to be able to achieve their personal goals? And then in corporate tax, there's a bit of overlap, but then we're looking predominantly at like limited companies, so incorporated businesses. And you can get involved in some really interesting work there, especially companies that are growing. So if you're working with a startup or a technology firm, they're going to have some pretty novel technology which they perhaps need help financing, and that's where we can look at things like research and development credits. We can get them accelerated tax relief so that they can continue growing and expanding and developing their businesses. So yeah, inevitably you will be sat doing some tax return compliance, but the more skills that you learn and the more that you know, you can start to get involved in some really like meaty, complex jobs. Yeah, and you definitely get exposed to that at an early stage as well, I would say.
Fantastic. I think that's one of my things is I like it when we all share in our teams, and I think we all do it in our different teams, where we share interesting, juicy things that we're working on. Even if it's something I'm working on with one colleague, I might well tell the rest of the team, saying, this is what I'm doing at the moment. Isn't this super exciting? And they all roll their eyes and go, yes, it is. Right, so now what I'd like to talk about is expectations. So I think we have talked a little bit about expectations of people in terms of qualifications, but actually what do we expect from trainees? And I think I'd like to go to you first, Ria, in terms of what you have talked a little bit about the skills, but if you could expand on that, please.
No, absolutely. I think the main thing is just having that keenness to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a constantly changing environment. You'll walk in and there are so many opportunities there. You'll hit the ground running from day one, but it's wanting to learn and wanting to learn off the people who are there to help you. We are, as everyone's already mentioned, a lot of times very much an organisation who works. We work as teams all the way through our career, from right up to the most senior levels. Everybody helps and supports each other, and to really benefit and get the most out of opportunities, you have to ask lots of questions. You can't be shy. You can't hold back. And the more questions you ask, the more you get out of it. What I would say is that it's a very, very quite flat organisation. I know, I can't remember who mentioned it, but somebody mentioned the fact that you do go through from sort of when you join right the way through up to partner in terms of that hierarchy. But actually, when you're sat in the office, that hierarchy almost disappears. It's very, very open plan. You can go and sit next to a desk. When you sit down at your desk, you might be sat next to a partner, or you might be sat next to a manager as a trainee, but that's absolutely fine. That really helps that conversation. You can turn and ask a question of anybody. And that's what I think we're really, really good at Bishop Fleming, just in terms of that openness and that ability to walk into any office and sit next to any person and ask lots of questions. So that's a really, really key thing, I think, in terms of a skill that you should have. And also, not forgetting the commitment to your studies as well. So you do, in this job, you study alongside working, so you will get some leave to go to college, professional training college, to study for your exams. But equally, you are committed to that learning in terms of giving it your all, trying. I mean, they're all very, very difficult exams, and I think we'll probably come on to covering that in a little bit more detail eventually later in this webinar. However, it's that commitment to trying and really giving it a stab, really committing to those studies, turning up on time, etc. So yeah.
It's mainly about keenness then, I feel.
It is very keen.
Okay. Shelby, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, so when I first started at Bishop Fleming, I started in audit. So I will have done 50% of my training contract in audit and 50% of my training contract in CBS. So just to give you an understanding of what would be expected of you when you first start at Bishop Fleming, I started on a job with a senior, and I'd obviously never used the technical side of things before, never used the systems. And so the senior would talk me through everything. They would show me exactly what area of the audit file I need to complete, talk me through how to do it, and then they would let me go on my way and have a good go at doing it. And we have a rule where if you are struggling for 5 minutes, you have to either pick up the phone if you're working from home or the office, or you ask them if you're in person. So that just makes sure that we don't sit there struggling on our own when we are new to starting the work. So that's the support network that you have around you, is how supportive it is. And I'm not going to deny the fact that I was slightly terrified when I first started with very little knowledge and very little skills. I actually went out and bought an Accountancy for Dummies book, and I'm not even kidding. So this is going to make me a great accountant. It went back because it wasn't needed, because the seniors are so brilliant at supporting you and talking you through everything that you need to know. So that's just what I want to get across, is that level of support that's there is brilliant.
Fantastic. Now, Shelby, if we can stay with you, as we're talking about studies and balancing everything, how do the exams work in terms of work time, exam time, study time?
Yeah, so we have 15 exams in total to complete. So there's 6 certificate level, there are 6 professional level, and then in your final year you have 3 advanced level exams. And with Bishop Fleming, because we work with First Intuition, who is our tuition provider, they enable us to sit the 6 certificate exams within the first 6 months of starting. So we get a really good grounding and a really good understanding of the core subjects that we need to know for our job. And then you go on to do the 6 professional exams. Now, we do have the luxury when we have our study weeks where we go away out of work in order to focus on learning, we can go up to Bristol in order to stay in self-catering accommodation, and will then attend in person. I'm yet to do that, unfortunately, with COVID getting in the way constantly, but my next lot of exams, I'm really excited to be able to go up and stay with everybody, and you all learn together then. So it's a much more sociable environment. And what is brilliant about First Intuition, say your study week, you're not able to go away, if you've got a lot of family commitments, then what they do enable you to do is work from home, and you can use pre-recorded lessons, which are really good, and they get you through all the content in order for you to be able to still learn while you've got that busy home life. So I think as a career changer, and certainly people out there who are interested in changing careers, that's probably a concern that I had as well. And if they've got that, just so they know that there are opportunities to flex the learning around what works for you.
And my understanding is actually you can also contact the tutors, can't you, to follow up on stuff when you get stuck, because that's the thing, is sometimes you're doing a revision and you're studying away from the actual lesson time.
Yeah, they are really, really supportive. So they give you their email address that you can contact them at any time, and I've had them reply to me at like 9-10 o'clock in the evening. They are super committed during your weeks, and even throughout, like between your study and your revision weeks, they constantly support you, put on lessons in the evenings, you have gap exams to do, so they're always there to help you when you need.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Now, we don't really want to talk about it, Sam, but I do have to ask then, can you let us know what happens if we fail when we're doing our exams?
Yeah, so as has been mentioned multiple times, the exams are really hard and there are 15 of them. So it's not uncommon for you to fail along the way. But fortunately, because it's a common occurrence, we have processes in place to deal with it. And basically, you get to resit it. The firm we pay for the exam for you, so you don't have to pay for it yourself. And also, there's a big stigma that, you know, there's some firms out there where when you fail an exam, you're out, you're booted out. But that is not the case at Bishop Fleming. They're here to support you, and they understand that, you know, life is busy, and you can just have a really, really busy period of your life and not have enough time to do all the exams at once. But because that's something that we're prepared for, you know, that's something that we can get through together. And I think the other important thing to hammer home is that you do get your weeks of learning and your week of revision, but you do have to sacrifice that personal time. And obviously, when that's some time that might be really taken up already, or you might have a really busy period, that's where you might, you know, have a bad day or whatever on the exam and then fail the exam and you have to reset. But it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all.
It's a test of resilience, that's what it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so beyond our professional qualifications, our chartered accountancy, Bishop Fleming puts on all sorts of other training. Elena, would you like to give us a little bit of an insight into what else we do?
Yes, for sure. Just about everything you can think of is probably a quick way to sum that up. So on top of our sort of more formal qualifications training, Bishop Fleming does run a session of professional development weeks. So especially for me, because I didn't go to university, I was a bit concerned that maybe I'd lost out on some of the presentation skills, or maybe I didn't know some business analysis techniques. Doesn't really matter because you cover all of that. If you're doing sort of either a 3 or a 5 year stint with BF, you'll do 4 weeks over the course of your training program, and each year that you sort of progress, you get sort of more in-depth skills that you learn, really practical skills, so presenting, like I said, and also things like personality profiling. So, and I mean that in the sense that when you're at work, there are some people who naturally you're going to get on with, you're going to click with, and there are other people who perhaps have a way of working that differs from the way that you like to work. Maybe you're a bit quieter, you like to work in a quiet space, maybe you need to bounce off the people around you, and it's all about how you can understand how other people like to work, and how you can sort of adapt the way that you interact with people so that you get the best out of everyone and that they get the best out of you. Really valuable, actually. I really enjoyed it. And then business development week as well, so that focuses a lot more on, well, as it sounds, developing the business. So how can we grow our own business, but also things like personal branding, so how to use LinkedIn, how you can sort of present yourself in the best light in a sort of professional context. Things which perhaps you might have touched on either at school or university, but actually having that insight from a professional services firm is really useful for your career, I think. And then on top of that, I'm also involved in quite a lot of stuff outside of the sort of traditional day job, if you like, that Bishop Fleming is really supportive of. So I've been involved in the Young Enterprise Scheme this year. So some of you may have got involved with that at school. You essentially start up a company and see it through from start to finish. And so I'm one of the business advisors that actually goes into a school now and sort of tries to hopefully do my best to assist them to grow their business and sort of practice some marketing skills and really kind of drive that entrepreneurial spirit in a very practical sense. And then also things like this. So because I didn't go to university, I personally am quite passionate about apprenticeships really being a very viable option, and actually sometimes I feel like the sort of commentary you get at school is that if you don't go to university, it's almost like game over. It's like, okay, you didn't reach your full potential, that's it, like there's nothing you can do about it. And it's just not true. I think as long as you've got the commitment to learn and the drive to better yourself, then the opportunities are there. And yeah, I really think that people need to know that, and Bishop Fleming have done absolutely spades for me. Yeah, I really like it here.
Thanks, Elena. That's bloody marvellous. Really lovely. Thank you. So, Elena, coming back to you actually straight away. So when you finish your Launchpad, so you've already sort of alluded to the fact that you get to do different rotations. So you get 8 months in 3 different departments as the first 2 years. Then you've got 3 years in a department, I'm assuming. What happens at the end of your training contract?
Yeah, so we've already touched on it a little bit. that during your training contract, if you're coming from school, you'll spend sort of 8 months in corporate business services, 8 months in audit, 8 months in tax, and maybe even 8 months in another department like corporate finance or insolvency if you show an interest in those slightly more specialist areas. And to be honest, I still don't really know what is exactly where I'm going to sit when I've finished my training contract. But I know that by the time I get there, I'll have had the practical sort of exposure, if you like, to really make an informed decision. I think each department perhaps has a slightly different personality type that fits in each area and has slightly different skill sets that perhaps they'll play to your strengths or weaknesses. And by the time I get there, I know that, yeah, I can make a good decision, basically.
Fair enough. Shelby, have you got anything to add to that?
Just to confirm that we do have a job at the end of the 3-year contract, which is obviously very important. If you're changing career and you're moving out of a job that's secure, you are moving into a job which is secure. And like Yelena said, it really is up to you where you think you'll work best. So I've said I've spent half of my contract in audit and CBS. So at the end of that, in the ideal world, I will really enjoy CBS and I will stay there, but there is that opportunity in order to explore different areas as well as have a secondment. So I know some people do have a secondment to industry or different departments. So there's a lot of flexibility, but I just wanted to point out we do have a job at the end of it.
Fantastic, thank you. And Ria, have you got anything to add in terms of options?
Yeah, so as the others have described, there is the option to obviously stay in Bishop Fleming, and we like our people, we like to develop our people and keep them within Bishop Fleming under our wing. However, some decide that actually at that stage you want to go off and explore industry more, and we fully support that in terms of some people want to go into industry to further develop themselves, and we will help you in terms of finding the right position for you, because that's how you ultimately build your network by doing such. Actually, when I trained myself, so once I qualified, I wanted to test industry out to see if I liked it or not, and actually ended up going on a secondment once I'd qualified. So I went into industry for a year and actually had some really good experience there. But if anything, it made me realise that practice was for me. And it comes back to this point, which I think all of us have said, the variety of the job. When I was in industry, I was sort of going to the same desk every single day, sitting next to the same people and doing sort of quite a routine monthly process. Rather, working in Bishop Fleming, no day is the same. You can guarantee it's different. Like Sam has touched on, you're on audits, which might last a couple of weeks. But after that, you then move on to a different client, working with a different team. Equally in tax, you're working on a different tax client pretty much daily. So the variety is there. But yeah, industry is an option.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So we're just going to, we've talked for too long, but we're going to speak very quickly to let you know what our favourite things are about Bishop Fleming. So we're going to go around the whole team. Now, my favourite thing, I could talk for quite some time, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I think I wanted to pick out the thing that I think is most useful in terms of anybody trying to decide what their career options are. And I think for me, Bishop Fleming is the perfect size. I've worked for a very big firm and I've worked for a smaller firm. With a very big firm, you can end up finding that you're quite specialised quite quickly. You can be quite distant from clients. You don't necessarily get to see the full picture. With a very small business, a small accountancy practice, you can get very close to the clients, which is something that I'm very passionate about, but actually you can end up having to do everything. And that frightens me quite a lot. I really, really do like the fact that here at Bishop Fleming, I can sit there, I can be looking after my client, can be very close to them, trying to work out what they're trying to do, but I can look around at my firm of 400 and something people, and there are experts across every single aspect that I could possibly ever need to draw from, whether it's some corporate finance, whether it's somebody in VAT on some really specialist techie thing, whether it's another one of my chums in the tax team who's really great at inheritance tax. I've got that whole breadth of knowledge and expertise that I can draw upon to really look after my clients, and that's what I really love about Bishop Fleming. So I'm going to stop gushing now. Ria, over to you. What's your favourite thing about Bishop Fleming?
So having worked at previous firms as well, I would say the real difference that Bishop Fleming brings is that everyone's opinion matters. So no matter what your level, your opinions and thoughts are listened to, which I think is a great thing. It gives you a sense of belonging, and that actually what you're contributing really, really matters. So yeah, that's definitely what's top of my agenda.
Thank you. Yelena, what about you?
Everyone's just really lovely. Sometimes when you work in a job, there'll be people you like, the people perhaps you don't get on quite so well with, but I genuinely can't think of anyone in the office that I couldn't turn to if I needed a hand with anything. And you spend so much of your time at work, vast majority of your day really, that you've just got to make sure that you enjoy what you're doing. I just think you can't put a price tag on that really.
Brilliant, thank you. Shelby, what about you?
Mine's being in a firm which is so supportive around your study, and they respect the fact that you may have a busy home life, and you want to make sure that your home life works with your work life as well as your study, so that you can commit to all. So just the learning team as well as the people managers are so supportive for that.
Brilliant, thank you. How about you, Sam?
As a social committee member, it would be a disservice for me to say that the social aspect of Bishop Fleming isn't my favourite, and it absolutely is. I mean, you've got the all firm events where you go out, you do pub quizzes, escape rooms. We went and did paddleboarding on the Bristol River the other day. So you've got that aspect, and then you've also got the aspect that you're coming in, if you're a graduate or a Launchpad, you're coming in with an intake of like 20 people, depending on which office you're in, and you just go out on the Fridays, payday, you go out and have payday drinks with everybody from across the firm, or even just regular events you start going to with all your mates because you're all the same age. So there's that great social atmosphere all the time. So that's definitely my favourite thing about working here at Bishop Fleming.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Right, I think our last bit before we move to the questions is Katie's going to give us a little pointer as to where we need to look for our job adverts.
Perfect. So we'll be opening up Q&As in a moment, so please do keep questions coming in. But if you've decided that from what you've heard this evening is a bit of you, and it sounds like that's the career path that you want to take, then you can find all of our job opportunities on our careers site, which is www.bishopfleming.co.uk/careers. You can always follow up with me after the webinar for any direct questions. My details will be sent to you in an email after the webinar, so please do feel free to get in touch. As you've probably heard, we are a friendly bunch. No question is a silly question. Just send that email and we can help out.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we're over to the Q&A now, and I'm just scrolling through. There's quite a lot of questions there, so we're going to whiz our way through them. Somebody asking, how can you get into accounting via apprenticeship? Would that give you a disadvantage compared to other ways? Katie, over to you. I think this is just effectively saying, is our apprenticeship the only way into accountancy? And I'd say probably it's the best way. You need to take on a trainee contract.
Yeah, I would say it's the best way. If you're not yet at university, then go for that Launchpad route. It's the quickest way as well, rather than, say, for example, doing anything which is not lesser than ACA, but any routes towards getting to ACA qualified. It dives straight in. So from what I've experienced, it's the fastest way, the most direct, and the way that you're going to gain as much hands-on experience as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So yeah, most straightforward way.
Okay, and for those people that are studying for their A-levels and clearly don't have their grades yet, what do they do about applying?
So I would, if they are in their final years of A-levels, so you've got AS and A2, A2 being that full A-level, so year 13, shall we say, you would still apply, because in terms of what the starting date is, we would hope that by then you would have received your A-levels or the grades that you would achieve. So you apply preempting the predicted grades that you're going to achieve. So yes, do apply if you are in year 13 and beyond year 13.
Brilliant, thank you. Rhea, if I can ask you to answer, there's various questions about summer internships, work experience for people still at school, and work placement years. Could you fill in on that?
Yeah, I can, no problem. So a work placement year is usually if you go to have a sandwich course at university and you have a placement year, that might be when you apply for roles, and Bishop Fleming offer that placement year in terms of you come mid university degree, work with us for a year, and then what we tend to find is that most come back when they finish their university degree after that. So that's an option in terms of how you might come in and join Bishop Fleming. In terms of summer internships, we are actually we're in the process now of planning a summer internship. I think it's a week, isn't it, Katie? In terms of people coming in to understand Bishop Fleming a little bit more.
Yeah.
What
So we offer, work experience for a week for year 12s and 13s. In terms of summer internships for university students, it's something that we're in discussion about to see if we could possibly run. So I would guide you straight to the 12-month in industrial placement if you're at uni, and then if you're at school, then definitely work experience. So keep an eye out for that, because that will be going up on our career site in the coming months for you to be able to apply, and that will be happening late June. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you. Is there anybody here that would like to answer a question about whether we could train part-time, or whether you could study actually, this is an interesting one. We've got quite a few individuals now that are working part-time in our firm. Ria, can I pass over to you there?
Yeah, and it is, we fully support part-time working within our business. We have a hybrid working policy, which is part of that as well. In terms of studying and doing the training contract, it is quite a huge time commitment. So I wouldn't want to say never. We are very open to having discussions with people if they want to work part-time and how that might work. But what I would say is the training contract, just because of the time commitment, it might be quite difficult to fit the study in a part-time capacity. But that's not to say never. We are open to having discussions with people who might want to apply. But that would be we have to be on a case-by-case basis.
Agreed. Okay. Katie, is there any limit to how long ago you had to have studied? If we did it 10 years ago, if I passed my degree 10 years ago, does that still count?
Yes, absolutely. I find that some graduate opportunities, and I don't know why, but some graduate opportunities put a limit onto like a time frame of when you need to have completed a degree, and that's absolutely not the case. So if you did complete your degree 10 years ago, then yeah, absolutely still apply. It's just making a nod to the fact that you will be going back into education, and just obviously getting yourself up to scratch with being able to do those exams, doing that learning. So that's all I would say.
Okay. Sam, there's a question here about is it a day at college, or is all the training based at Bishop Fleming? Do you want to just give us I think we did allude to it actually in our presentation, but
yeah. So the training is actually provided by a third-party provider called First Intuition, and you go to their offices, assuming COVID isn't a thing. I've been there now to their offices, which is right by Temple Meads in Bristol. So it doesn't matter what firm you're in. If you're, as Shelby alluded earlier, if you're in a firm that isn't in Bristol, you will get put up in Bristol to stay in a hotel, and then you'll go into the Bristol office for First Intuition. And they'll teach you basically. So they're an education provider, and you'll spend the entire day there doing your learning for a whole week. Then, depending on your exams, you'll have maybe a 2-month break, and then another whole week learning right before the exams as like a revision phase. But yeah, it's all done by that third party provider and in their offices. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. There's a question, this might be for you, Katie. If you achieved a 2-1 in accounting and finance at university but didn't get a BBC at A-levels, will you still be considered for a role here?
We take in sort of applications as a whole, so yes, definitely you would still be considered. It's a case of making everything clear on your CV, so what you achieved at GCSEs, what you did actually achieve at A-levels, whether that was a BTEC, whether that was A-levels that you completed, what grades that you did achieve, and then so on to what you then achieved at university as well. Also make sure that you include everything extracurricular that you've done, whether that's volunteering, things like Duke of Edinburgh, whether it's a case that actually you've had a summer job, whether you've done work experience, all of those sorts of things make up an application. So yes, please do apply, because we do look at a full application as a whole.
Thank you. I've got a question here for Ria. I think I'm understanding. So the question is about one of the apprenticeships for an auditor, one of the trainee chartered accountant apprenticeships, is working from home, and how would that work on a day-to-day basis? Can we work from home and be an audit trainee?
The honest answer is probably not purely from home.
Mm.
As I mentioned to you when I was talking about the last question of our hybrid working policy, and that policy is very much you do what's best for you in terms of where you work, but also what's best for your team and the client. And actually, what it might be is a client might request that you go out on site for a few days. So it might be during the course of a week that you end up on site for a few days. You then might have to work as a team. So you might come back into the office and work as a team there. But actually then, say on the Friday, you might have something to write up. And so actually being at home in quiet, just getting on with it, might actually work quite well for everybody. And so really, we treat everybody as adults and let everyone come to their own conclusion in terms of the best way to work. But that hybrid working policy really allows you to work in the best way, which benefits all. And actually, I think just the nature of the role is very hard just for an audit trainee to be based at home 100%, because actually you miss out on so much of the training and that team interaction, which we've spoken about a lot during this webinar. That I think you really wouldn't get the maximum amount of your training contract if you did that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. We've got a question, which might be another one for you, Katie. How would you recommend preparing for an interview, video and in person? Somebody's saying, in his experience, the questions seem completely random.
They may seem random, but then actually when you think about it and you look at our values, you'll then suddenly figure out that actually all the questions that we're asking are very closely aligned to our values, and within reason for that. So in terms of obviously being able to prepare, if you head on to our careers site, we've got materials there where you can learn how to best write your CV. We've also got descriptions on the process in full, so that you can kind of understand which stage you're at every step of the way. Probably the best advice that I can give you around interviews is there's an acronym called STAR. Go away and research it. So that's STAR, it's an acronym, and that's probably the best advice I can give you around answering competency-based questions. It shows you how to structure them. It shows you in terms of what the task was that you're doing, how you action that, and the results of it as well. So if there's sort of one which is thrown in there and you think, I haven't prepared for this one, I don't have an answer that I've rehearsed in my head, think STAR, and then that will really help you get through it. And that can both be for our video interviews and also for our interviews that we have in the office as well. Another piece of advice I would say is research the company, research the job, and that way you'll probably see yourself tying any answers to the job and to the company, and then that hopefully will equally align to values as well. And that goes with any interview that you've got, not just for us. So I hope that's really helped you.
Thank you, Katie. Ria, another one for you, actually. I'm just wondering, do you know the specifics? If somebody's done a relevant degree, an accounting and finance degree, there are usually exemptions from various of the professional exams, certainly under ACCA. There are under ACA as well, aren't there? I don't know which ones they are, but there are some exemptions, aren't there?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly which exams they're exempt from, but there will be some exemptions for sure. I think I know people who come in and don't have to do any of the first level exams, I believe, if you do a certain, it depends what routes you take. But what we will do is sit down with you on day one just to really work out what that looks like. But yeah, if you do a relevant degree, there'll definitely be exemptions along the way.
Yep. Okay. There's a question asking about a link, where the link is on our careers page for year 13 applicants. Is there a link that says Launchpad, as Katie?
Yes,
it says school leavers.
So it says Launchpad, so you won't see it as school leaver, you'll see it as Launchpad. So if you head onto the career site, I'd probably say the best way to navigate you around that is anything that says early careers, hit that function. So rather than looking through all of the experienced hires as well, if you filter down to early careers, then that should be the easiest way to find it.
Brilliant. There's somebody questioning, Laura, at university, would doing a master's in accountancy finance after she finishes her degree be of any help, or is it just not necessary? Sam, have you got a vibe about that?
It's not necessary because your ACCA or ACA qualification at the end is a master's equivalent. So that's, I mean, you're kind of doing that with the practice and experience as well, and you're getting paid for it, which is why I went ahead and did it instead of doing a master's degree. So I mean, it's obviously up to you. If you want to stay in the university experience, you will get you'll get a more theory focus probably if you did a master's. But when you do in the firm, you'll definitely get more of a practical side of it, and you'll still come out with the same qualification at the end of it, and you get paid. So my advice would be, don't worry about the masters.
Okay, I think I'm with you. Yelena, we've got a question. Somebody wants to know if applying for the graduate or actually any other route, is it possible to specify which office is your preference?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's pretty flexible, really. You can sort of just apply generally, and then see where you're put, or if you want to stay close to family, say, and you want to work in a particular office, then yeah, just put it down on your application. I think ask the question. It's not going to hurt to ask the question.
I think the other point to note is actually it's possible to transfer once you're on your training contract. So we've got various individuals that for personal reasons have wanted to transfer between offices, and that's not a problem at all because we do the same work everywhere.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, I think we have largely answered the questions. I'm also very conscious that we've been talking for an hour and we really shouldn't have been talking for this long. So I'd like to thank you all for your patience. If we haven't answered your questions, we'll try and contact you directly, or please do contact us via the website or contact Katie, and we'll answer any further questions that we haven't quite got to, because there are some perhaps more specific ones out there. Okay, so I'd just like to finish off by thanking my fellow presenters, thanking all of you for joining us. I hope this is what you're expecting. We've given you a bit of a flavour about what accountancy is about, what Bishop Fleming's about, and I'd just like to wish you all a very good evening. Thank you very much.